Hey, what's up? What's going on? You are listening to English with Dane, a podcast designed to improve your English. As always, I'm your host, Dane, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at English with Dane. On today's show, we've got a few things to talk about. We're going to start with Today in History, where I talk about the origin of something we all know well. And then I'm going to talk about something that has been on my mind recently, related to TV shows. So let's start the show. You are listening to the 25th episode of English with Dane. Hit it. Okay, we have officially started the show, so let's get into our first segment, Today in History. Let's check in with History.com to see what happened. The headline reads, "The Miranda rights are established." On this day in 1966, the Supreme Court hands down its decision in Miranda versus Arizona, establishing the principle that all criminal suspects must be advised, aconsejados or informados, of their rights, sus derechos, before interrogation. Now considered standard police procedure, the Miranda rights have been heard so many times in television and film dramas that it has become almost a cliche. If you're not familiar with the Miranda rights, it's because you don't know them by this name, but I guarantee you've heard them before. It's what police say as they arrest you. They say, "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand the rights I have just read to you?" Now, let's explore where this comes from, why and when it became necessary for arresting officers or any officers to read you these rights before any interrogation can take place, pueda ocurrir. It says, the roots, las raíces, of the Miranda decision go back to March 2nd, 1963, when an 18-year-old woman in Phoenix, Arizona, told the police that she had been abducted, que había sido secuestrada, driven to the desert and raped. Detectives questioning her story gave her a polygraph test, also known as a lie detector test, but the results were inconclusive. However, tracking the license plate number, haciendo un seguimiento de la matrícula, tracking the license plate number of a car that resembled that of her attackers, que se parecía al del atacante, brought police to a man called Ernesto Miranda, or Ernesto Miranda, who had a prior record as a peeping Tom. By the way, a peeping Tom is someone who derives pleasure from watching people in secret. Okay, so he had a record of being a peeping Tom. Then it says, although, a pesar de que, the victim did not identify Miranda in a lineup, he was brought into police custody and interrogated. What happened next is disputed, so it's not clear. But officers left the interrogation with a confession that Miranda later recanted or took back, unaware that he didn't have to say anything at all. In other words, he didn't know that he had the right to remain silent. The confession was extremely brief and differed in certain respects from the victim's account of the crime. However, Miranda's appointed defense attorney or lawyer didn't call any witnesses at the trial, and Miranda was convicted. Witnesses are people who see an event happen, right? Usually in the scenario of a crime or an accident. Then, while Miranda was in Arizona State Prison, the American Civil Liberties Union took up his appeal, claiming that the confession was false and coerced. So they said that he was tricked into confessing, and that the confession shouldn't count, basically. The Supreme Court overturned or invalidated his conviction, but Miranda was retried and convicted in October 1966 anyway, despite the lack of evidence, la falta de pruebas, against him. Remaining in prison until 1972, Ernesto Miranda was later stabbed to death in the men's bathroom of a bar after a poker game in January 1976. To be stabbed means to be attacked with a knife, right? Ser apuñalado. To stab, spelled S-T-A-B, means apuñalar. So as a result of this case, Miranda against Arizona, each and every person must now be informed, debe ser informado or informada, of his or her rights when arrested. So I did some more research though, because there seem to be, parece haber, some misconceptions about these rights. Some people think that if the police officer doesn't read you the Miranda rights, that the case will be dismissed or thrown away. Sobreseído in Spanish, a word I learned today. So apparently, that is very unlikely or improbable. However, if the police officer doesn't read you these rights, they cannot use what you say in court. Probably. It's not super clear, but with these things in general, there are always other factors. But in theory, that's the case. Other countries have similar protocols in place for these situations. I found some information about Spain's procedure because I live in Spain, and I know a lot of you do as well. It says, the law on criminal procedure provides that a suspect must be informed immediately upon arrest and in a clear manner of the reasons for the detention and of his or her fundamental rights, such as the right to remain silent and the right against self-incrimination, the right to communicate to a family member about his or her detention, the right to be assisted by an interpreter free of charge, and the right to legal counsel of his or her choice. If necessary, a public defender may be appointed. So pretty much exactly the same. As always, if I'm wrong about this, please, I encourage you to write to me and let me know, and I'll correct it for the next episode. This was a really interesting one, I think, because I've heard the Miranda rights a million times over the years in movies and TV shows. So it's cool to know where they actually come from. So I hope you found that as interesting as I did. All right, let's move on. I wanted to ask you for some input. I'm looking for a new TV show to watch, right, to fill the void or to fill the hole left by Game of Thrones. I've asked a few people and I've received a lot of mixed answers. There are a few names, however, that keep coming up, that people keep saying. So what I want to do is put up a poll on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll let you decide between two. The one that receives the most votes will be the next show that I get into. I have 4 options so far, but I'm going to narrow them down to only 2. Right now on my list of top TV show recommendations are Peaky Blinders, Band of Brothers, Homeland, and True Detective. But again, out of those 4, I'll choose 2, and then you can vote for the one you think I should watch. I've been watching RuPaul's Drag Race a little bit. If you don't know what it is, check it out so you can understand how badly I need a new TV show. It has been really entertaining though, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I don't know what it is about these reality TV shows like Jersey Shore or Gandia Shore here in Spain, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Big Brother for some people. But if you watch it for a few minutes, you get sucked in and suddenly you've watched 2 episodes. I think maybe it's a combination of how brainless most of the content is and the way they edit the episodes. I don't mean brainless in a negative way necessarily, because sometimes brainless content is what you need or what you want. You can't always be watching super deep, thought-provoking content. I think sometimes you want to disconnect and watch something that doesn't require a lot of attention to follow what's happening. But you have to be careful because if you watch a little bit too much of these type of shows, then you always feel a little bit strange. you get used to the rhythm of she said this, oh my God, and then he reacted like this, so then this and whatever. And this is what I mean about editing. The way they edit these reality TV shows is crazy. First of all, they spend half of the episode showing you things from last episode to give you context, but they do it too much. They show you something one person said, and then they cut to someone's reaction. But the thing is that a lot of the time, it's not a reaction from that conversation. They cut and paste, cortan y pegan, different shots and reactions wherever they need to fit the narrative, right? To tell the story however they want. It's actually a really smart way to do this, I think. Whether it's good or bad for society is a different story, but it is a clever way to build a narrative. They understand how our brains work, that we connect everything we see, even if it's not there. They give us whatever context they want, and then they show us people saying things and people reacting, and we assume it's all connected. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it feels like. That said, I have been enjoying RuPaul's Drag Race. I guess you could say it's a guilty pleasure for me, because when I watch it, I feel like I could be watching, podría estar viendo, more mentally stimulating shows. But at the same time, it has been fun. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think. All right, that's the show for today. Tune in on Monday for episode 26 of English with Dane. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iVoox, or wherever you listen to the show. Remember, the best way to support English with Dane is to share it with friends and family, and if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating and a review. All right, talk soon. Bye-bye.